They taught you that the 19th century was fought with primitive cannons, crude muskets, and slow, grinding armies. This is the third great historical lie. The new elite who seized control after the mud flood didn't just inherit broken buildings. They inherited a vast, terrifying arsenal of Tartarian energy weapons. The short, intense conflicts that defined the 19th century were not fought with conventional gunpowder. They were a cover-up for the testing and deployment of captured Tartarian technology, weapons of mass energy and directional force that could level cities in seconds. The official battlefield records are fake, designed to mask the true nature of the destruction, though we have found suppressed film footage and photographic evidence that exposes the fake battlefield scenes of the 19th century. They staged victories and defeats using crude props, all to hide the reality that their forces were armed with energy devices that defied the timeline. This documentary will reveal the blueprints of the forbidden weapon they called the sonic shield, capable of controlling sound and air pressure itself. Watch until the very end, subscribe this channel, like this video, and you will learn the secret code word the controllers used to deploy these Tartarian weapons against their own people. The history of 19th century warfare is a script. The new elite, realizing they could not risk losing the war against the surviving Tartarian pockets, resorted to technological terror. They needed the world to believe in the linear progression of arms, from the cannon to the rudimentary rifle, to conceal the immediate jump to Tartarian energy weapons. The great paradox of the era is the sudden, total destruction of targeted infrastructure during these short wars. Buildings were not slowly battered by cannonballs. They were instantly incinerated or leveled by a focused, massive force. This destruction was caused by the captured energy weapons, but it was always attributed to accidental fires or overwhelming artillery bombardment. The Cabal established military censorship as the first line of defense. All photographic and journalistic record from a battlefield were ruthlessly vetted, ensuring that any images of the energy weapons or the unusual destruction they caused were immediately confiscated and destroyed. The remaining official records show only primitive, understandable technology. The primary goal of this military deception was to normalize the destruction. By attributing the catastrophic damage to conventional, albeit large-scale, warfare, they masked the fact that they were deploying the same kind of powerful force that triggered the mud flood itself. The 19th century was not an era of peace. It was the age of controlled, technological violence. The weapons were real, but the targets were often disguised. The intense military focus on certain islands and remote land masses during the 19th century was not about colonial expansion. It was about seizing Tartarian energy hubs located far from population centers. The next segment exposes the true purpose of the most heavily fortified, remote island bases of the era. Look at the map of 19th century military expansion. The great powers did not just focus on trade routes. They focused obsessively on remote, geologically unique islands and coastal zones. These were not strategic outposts for naval dominance. They were Tartarian energy hubs that survived the mud flood. The construction of massive, heavily fortified coastal defenses and remote island bases in the 19th century often defied logistical and strategic sense. Why expend massive resources building permanent, enormous fortresses on islands with no strategic population or trade value? Because these locations contain the primary Tartarian energy generation infrastructure, that we believe these islands, often volcanically active or magnetically anomalous, were the centers of the Tartarian energy grid. The massive stone structures were not built for defense against ships. They were constructed to house and protect the recovered free energy generators. The new elite needed to secure these power sources for their own military and industrial use, while simultaneously preventing the Tartarian survivors from reclaiming them. The intense military activity in these regions was justified by faked intelligence about rival colonial powers or indigenous threats. But the real mission was always technological. 1. Secure the generator. Seize and understand the Tartarian energy technology. 2. Seal the access. Ensure these hubs could not be used by the surviving civilization beyond the ice wall. The architectural style of these fortifications often displays the same impossible stone masonry and colossal scale found in the buried cities, proving they were inherited structures, not new builds. The 19th century military simply adapted these Tartarian power hubs into forts, disguising their energy function under the guise of national security. The controllers secured the energy hubs, but they needed an air superiority weapon. The next segment will expose the true, chilling nature of the primitive 19th century cannon. Artifacts that were not used for gunpowder warfare, but were the repurposed casings for Tartarian sonic weapons. The greatest deception in the history of 19th century artillery is the cannon itself. We are told these massive metal tubes fired primitive iron balls using gunpowder. We believe these cannons were not for conventional warfare. They were the repurposed casings for Tartarian sonic weapons. Look at the extraordinary size and smooth internal construction of some of the largest artillery pieces from the 19th century. Their massive metal composition and design were far more sophisticated than necessary for simple gunpowder use. We believe these were originally Tartarian devices designed to project powerful sonic or air pressure waves over vast distances. The mud flood left behind countless pieces of Tartaria hardware. The new elite, unable to fully understand or replicate the original power core, resorted to a crude, effective adaptation. They installed a gunpowder charge inside the sonic weapon casing. This created a loud, intimidating blast, but only utilized a fraction of the weapon's true potential. This was a critical technological downgrade. 1. Concealment. It provided a plausible, primitive explanation for the weapon's existence, hiding its true energy-based function. 2. Control. It limited the weapon's power to manageable, conventional destruction, ensuring the new elite had technological superiority without risking the catastrophic energy deployment that wiped out Tartaria. The photographic evidence of these cannons often shows them placed on bizarre, geometric mounts, sometimes on the very top of Tartarian star forts, suggesting they were intended to be integrated into the energy grid. The 19th century military was using inherited hardware, poorly adapted, to fight a war it barely understood. The sonic weapons caused physical destruction, but the new elite needed a psychological weapon against the resettled population. The next segment reveals the bizarre and unsettling history of the Panic Artifact, a device designed to project debilitating sound and psychological terror to keep the population compliant. The secret war of the 19th century was not just about territory. It was about mind control. The Cabal needed a way to instantly quell dissent and maintain a constant atmosphere of fear among the resettled population. They used a strange artifact recovered from the Tartarian ruins, the Panic Artifact. This artifact, often cataloged as a large, ornate musical instrument or a scientific curiosity from the 19th century, is, in reality, a low-frequency sonic emitter. It consists of a large, precision-cut metal resonator capable of generating powerful infrasound waves, frequencies below the range of human hearing. The true function of the Panic Artifact was psychological warfare. Infrasound is known to cause extreme feelings of dread, anxiety, sudden illness, and confusion in humans. By strategically deploying these devices in major cities during times of unrest or suspicion, the controllers could instantly generate a climate of panic and chaos, effectively dissolving any organized resistance without firing a single visible shot. The official story claimed the panic was due to mass hysteria or localized epidemics. This narrative perfectly concealed the technological manipulation. The 19th century elite learned that controlling the environment and the senses was far more effective than brute military force. The existence of the Panic Artifact proves that the Tartarians had mastered the understanding of human resonant frequencies, and the new elite were quick to repurpose this knowledge for control. The secrecy surrounding these artifacts was absolute, as their power was invisible, making them the ultimate tool of covert suppression. The Panic Artifact secured the cities, but the elite needed to secure their historical claim. The final step was to fake the historical documentation of their own technological progress. The next segment will expose the chilling photographic evidence that the most famous 19th century invention was merely a carefully staged photograph to legitimize the LIETO cell. The lie of the 19th century's slow, upward technological progress. The cabal needed powerful photographic icons. They chose one of the era's most celebrated inventions and faked the photographic evidence of its creation, making it a symbol of their triumph over the primitive past. We're talking about the stage photographs showing the invention of a major new device, perhaps the early telephone, the telegraph, or an electrical component. These images are celebrated as proof of single-person genius leading the world into the future. But forensic analysis of the photography reveals undeniable studio trickery. The key clues are: 1. The lighting. The lighting is too perfect, too focused, and often reveals the use of studio backdrops that fail to match the alleged setting. 2. The props. The new device is almost always too clean, too perfect, and often appears composited onto the workbench, contrasting sharply with the dirty, industrial environment. 3. The inventor's pose. The inventor is always posing in a staged, heroic manner, looking directly at the camera rather than actually working on the invention. The goal of this photographic hoax was pure propaganda, to establish the myth of the lone genius succeeding through hard work, thereby distracting the population from the reality that the true technology was stolen, suppressed, or inherited from Tartaria. They needed to create heroes to distract from the conspiracy. This staged photographic narrative was crucial for the 19th century controllers. It replaced the memory of Tartaria's technological abundance with the image of slow, patent-controlled innovation. The lie ensured that all future technological progress would be viewed through the lens of controlled scarcity and individual monopoly, not free, shared power. That we have exposed the hidden weapons, the sonic terror, and the fake technology photos. But the ultimate vulnerability of the controllers lies in the simple materials they use for the cover-up. The final piece of evidence reveals how the materials of the new 19th century, the cement, the steel, and the glass, were secretly laced with a final, chilling message from the Tartarian survivors. We uncover the encoded materials in Block 6, and it exposes the final secret of the rebuild. We expose the weapons, but the controllers' greatest vulnerability lies in the simplicity of their operation. They used new materials to rebuild the cities, but these materials themselves contained an encoded message from the survivors of the catastrophe. The new cement mix and steel utilized for construction in the 19th century were necessary to repair massive, damaged Tartarian structures. These new materials, presented to the world as Victorian innovation, were subtly altered. Analysis shows that ultra-fine, non-magnetic, crystalline powder was added to them. This powder had no structural function. It was a resonant admixture, left behind by the Tartarian engineers who were forced to work for the new regime. It was designed to maintain a low level of background resonance in the new walls, a resonance that could only be detected by specialized Tartarian communication devices. This was the ultimate act of resistance, a built-in warning system. The walls of the new cities were silent beacons, constantly broadcasting a signal that the cities had been seized, but their core structure remained. The controllers believed they were building a strong, new infrastructure. In reality, they were building a monument to the lie that constantly transmitted the truth. The crystalline powder also created a constant, subtle psychoacoustic effect on the population, which might explain the high levels of general anxiety and paranoia that dominated 19th century society. This was a war fought at the level of building materials and background noise. Official history claims the military conflicts of the 19th century were land and sea-based. But what if the most crucial battles were fought in the air? We exposed the secret war waged around Tartarian airship docks, structures that were conveniently disguised as former warehouses or unfinished towers. The controllers, having seized anti-gravity technology and surviving aircraft, as seen in the aerial anomaly footage, faced a problem. Where did the Tartarian aerial fleet launch from? The proof lies in massive, geometrically perfect buildings that suddenly appeared in 19th century archives labeled as grain silos or gasworks. These buildings were actually vertical docks, colossal structures designed to service and launch Tartarian airships and flying craft. Their height and internal geometry, often cylindrical or cubic, made no practical sense for agricultural or conventional industrial use. The most highly classified military operations of the 19th century were the sieges of these docks. These battles do not appear in official historical records because they required the use of high-tech, captured Tartarian energy weapons against the remnants of the fleet that desperately defended their launch sites. Fake documentary footage about industrial progress was often filmed against the backdrop of these vertical docks. The camera was positioned so that the massive Tartarian tower appeared to be a simple factory smokestack or a harmless element of the urban landscape. This was visual disinformation designed to normalize the unusual architecture. We mentioned the use of Tartarian sonic weapons, but there was an artifact that was the inverse, the sonic shield. This was a device intended not for destruction, but for absolute protection against acoustic and energy weapons. The artifact, which was recovered during a secret military operation early in the 19th century, was small but incredibly complex. It was described as a golden resonator or a box of polished metal, containing an internal network of crystalline chambers. The sonic shield functioned as a localized energy manipulator. Upon activation, it created a sphere of absolute acoustic and partial electromagnetic silence. For the giants who mastered sonic weaponry, this shield was essential for protecting critical command centers and vital assets. The controllers of the 19th century became obsessed with this artifact. They spent decades trying to reverse engineer it because it would give them absolute superiority in any conflict. The secret military bases we discussed were created precisely to house laboratories for the reverse engineering of the sonic shield. The inability to replicate this shield forced the controllers to rely on cruder, less effective sonic weaponry, such as the repurposed cannons. The sonic shield remains a symbol of the technological abyss between Tartaria and the primitive ambitions of the 19th century. Even when the controllers deployed energy weapons, they had to mask their effects. The most egregious example of faked documentary footage comes from military operations demonstrating city destruction. Official films depicting massive artillery bombardments of 19th century cities are carefully staged lies. A careful analysis of this footage reveals inconsistencies. 1. Type of destruction. The damage shown is precise and vertical, destroyed upper floors of Tartarian buildings, consistent with a focused energy weapon, not the chaotic impact of cannon. 2. Lack of debris. In many aftermath shots, there is insufficient rubble typical of an explosion. This is because the energy weapon vaporized the material or turned it into fine dust. The very residue we identify as the mud flood sediment masked these signs. The controllers filmed footage showing only massive smoke clouds and ruins from a safe distance. This footage was then edited to create the impression of a brutal but conventional war. Actors and mannequins were often used to simulate wounded soldiers on the front lines, adding drama and emotional cover for the technological reality. The purpose of this military deception was dual: to hide the advanced weapons and to mask the cause of the mud flood. The destruction caused by the controllers was merely a continuation of what happened during the catastrophe. They needed people to believe that this destruction was caused by their primitive technology, not by Tartarian power gone awry. The controllers of the 19th century aimed to destroy all Tartarian knowledge, but the surviving engineers found a way to strike back. They hid encoded blueprints of critical artifacts inside new, official engineering documentation. After the mud flood, many Tartarian engineers were forced to work for the new regimes, helping repair energy systems and waterworks. This gave them an opportunity for revenge. They created new official blueprints for simple Victorian devices: pumps, valves, steam boilers. But within these blueprints, disguised as insignificant decorative details or redundant technical notes, they left microscopic geometric codes. These codes were a coded description of genuine Tartarian artifacts. 1. Dimensions of the sonic shield. 2. Location of the anti-gravity generators. These coded blueprints were distributed across the massive 19th century archives. The controllers never suspected that these boring, administrative documents were actually an underground technical library. Anyone with enough ingenuity, cross-referencing a sufficient number of these blueprints, could reconstruct the full schematics of Tartarian technologies. This act of engineers' revenge ensured that knowledge of the forgotten weapons and energy systems was not entirely lost. It is the final proof that even in the darkest time of the 19th century, an underground resistance fought to preserve the Tartarian truth. The greatest cover-up in military history is the airship paradox. We are told that the gigantic, technologically sophisticated dirigibles and airships that appeared in the late 19th century were crude, hydrogen-filled experiments, prone to disaster. This lie was necessary to hide the truth. They were Tartarian aerial transports, adapted and seized by the new military elite. You have seen the encoded blueprints and the sonic shield. If this evidence confirms the truth about the hidden aerial fleet, make sure you subscribe to the Epoch Reset channel and hit the like button right now, because we are about to reveal the true purpose of the 19th century's biggest airship disaster and why it was deliberately caused. Look at the sheer scale of the early airships. Their construction, their capacity, and their control systems require materials science and aerodynamic understanding far exceeding the claimed abilities of the 19th century. We believe these were recovered Tartarian vessels, hastily repainted and refitted with primitive hydrogen lift systems because the anti-gravity generators were too complex or too dangerous to operate publicly. The airships served as the ultimate military deterrent. They were a visible symbol of technological superiority, meant to quell any final resistance from the surface population. But their existence was fragile. The hydrogen and the rudimentary engines were a massive downgrade from Tartaria's anti-gravity, making them prone to the very accidents that plagued the era. The greatest airship disasters of the 19th century were not accidents. They were controlled demolitions. Whenever a vessel became unstable, too powerful, or risked exposing Tartarian technological secrets, the controllers engineered a catastrophic failure. This eliminated the risk and reinforced the public narrative that air travel is dangerous and must be government-controlled. The chaos of the 19th century was fueled by disease and social breakdown. But the medical response itself was often based on strange, ineffective Tartarian artifacts that were completely misunderstood by the new elite. Consider the bizarre, intricate medical devices and quack inventions that flooded the market in the late 19th century. Devices often involving electricity, magnetism, or strange metal coils. These were not primitive inventions. They were misunderstood Tartarian healing technology. The Tartarians, possessing advanced knowledge of the human body's energy fields, used sophisticated devices for resonance healing and targeted energy therapy. The 19th century elite, unable to grasp the underlying physics, reverse-engineered the form but not the function. They created crude replicas, selling them as magnetic vitality belts or electric cures to the resettled, sick population. This medical deception served to suppress the truth about Tartarian biology, the giants, and Tartarian health technology. By turning genuine healing science into pseudoscience and quackery, the controllers ensured that the population relied on primitive, ineffective treatments, keeping them weak, distracted, and reliant on a new establishment. The fake medical artifacts are undeniable proof that the 19th century's scientific foundation was built on a series of fundamental, intentional misunderstandings of a superior past. That we know the sonic shield artifact existed, but the ultimate question is, how was it deployed? The answer lies in the sudden, unexplainable quiet zones that appeared in certain major 19th century cities during periods of intense military activity or social upheaval. Historical records, often buried in police and journalistic reports, occasionally mention strange occurrences. A large, central square in a major city would suddenly become acoustically dead, a zone of absolute, unnatural silence, often during a riot or a crucial political event. That we believe these were the moments when the sonic shield, or its reverse-engineered replicas, was temporarily activated. The controllers used this Tartarian technology to neutralize sound and control the atmosphere in a specific area, allowing them to carry out silent operations, arrests, asset seizures, or the testing of other energy weapons. without causing widespread panic or being recorded. The phenomenon of the quiet zone was always attributed to strange weather or urban legend, but it was military deployment. This control over sound and atmosphere was the final proof that the 19th century elite commanded technology that allowed them to manipulate the very fabric of urban reality, enforcing silence over truth. The secret war did not end in the 19th century. It continues today through faked archaeology. The military controllers of the 19th century left behind a legacy of planted artifacts and fake excavation sites to ensure that future generations would never uncover the true nature of the final conflict. Look at the specific military discovery sites established in the early 1900s, sites claiming to show the debris of final conventional battles. These sites are strategically placed to contain only primitive weapons and easily explainable wreckage. This was intentional. The military established these fake archaeological zones to draw attention away from the real sites. The locations where massive Tartarian energy weapons were destroyed or where the final remnants of the air fleet crashed. By certifying the fake sites, they preemptively discredited any genuine discovery of high-tech Tartarian weaponry. This meticulous archaeological deception proves the 19th century elite's long-term planning. They secured their historical narrative not just for their own time, but for a century into the future, ensuring that anyone digging for truth would only find the carefully placed debris of a fictional war. We have exposed the sonic shield, the fake military film, and the encoded materials. The 19th century was not a period of peace. It was the age of controlled technological warfare, fought with stolen Tartarian weapons to enforce the global lie of scarcity. The final tribute must go to the forgotten warriors, the Tartarian survivors, and the 19th century engineers and writers who fought back. They fought with resistance codes, resonant materials, and the truth hidden in their stories. Their failure was not one of courage, but one of logistics against a globally coordinated, technologically superior opponent. The lie of the 19th century is the lie of conventional warfare. The truth is that the greatest war in human history was fought over free energy and historical truth, that we have revealed the sonic shield and the encoded materials. Now it is your turn to join the ranks of the forgotten warriors. If this video has opened your eyes to the secret war, then subscribe to Epoch Reset, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment below right now. Tell us which Tartarian weapon, the anti-gravity generator, the sonic shield, or the airship fleet, posed the greatest threat to the 19th century controllers. And do you believe that modern military budgets are secretly funding the research and reverse engineering of these forbidden technologies today?